Let's bring in Teddy Greenstein from the Chicago Tribune. Teddy, can you explain what exactly – so Northwestern's taking their vote today, and what would be the results of this vote?
Well, we won't know the results for quite some time because the NLRB, the national office, needs to chime in first, and that could take months. Almost everyone expects this to be no. People who are following this understand why, but most people nationally are like, wait a second, you guys are employees. Why would you not want to collectively bargain? There are a bunch of reasons for that. That said, the Mitch McGary news, a year-long suspension for failing a pod test, I think that's going to get some players' attention.
Yeah, is this an anonymous vote by players, or is each vote recorded?
Totally anonymous, and Northwestern is doing its best to keep the media far off campus, basically kicking reporters to the curb. So it's not like going to be an election where there's like an exit poll. Nobody's really going to know anything until it's revealed. And I'll tell you what, if the NLRB overturns it, we're never going to know how the vote went down.
Do you do think, though, that this Mitch McGary news, which just broke this morning, you do think that's going to have an impact on some of these players before they go in and vote?
It could. I'm sure some of these guys are looking at it saying, man, the NCAA is so unfair. And so maybe the guys who are right on the edge are saying that. Flip side, there was some news yesterday about restructuring, and some student athletes are going to have a seat at the table. It's probably going to be a very small seat, or maybe it's going to be like a stool. But, there's been some news lately that and the meals and snacks stuff that is going to, help the cause of the anti-union folks.
After the vote, how quickly do you think we'll know the result?
Well, it's going to be a while. Yeah, it's going to be months. So it's whenever the national office chimes in. But it's really only if they say yes, if they uphold the decision from the regional director, then we're going to find out how Northwestern voted. If they voted yes, they need a majority, then they become a union, and they can collectively bargain. If they don't get the majority, then it's frozen for 12 months.
How long do you think this could go on, this battle could go on, if they do vote to unionize with the NCAA?
Yeah, that's where, being a sports writer, it's like I didn't get into this to become a labor expert or a Supreme Court guy, but it sounds like Northwestern would take it as far as it possibly can, which means the Supreme Court. So I don't know what that docket is looking like, but it certainly could be a while.
Do you think the players, though, if it's not going to be made public, don't you think the players, most of them have their own kind of informal exit polls where they know how the majority of their team kind of voted?
I do. And I can probably tell you, if we went through the roster, I could probably nail 2/3 or 3/4 of the guys, kind of based on who they're friends with, what position they play. Some, socioeconomics plays a role. Race, I think, plays something of a role in how people vote. Who Kane is friends with. Based on the players who've come out so far and have said how they're going to vote have all basically said no, and that's smart of them because their head coach wants them to vote no. So it doesn't benefit a player who's going to vote yes to say yes, I'm a pro-union guy. But I think people have a good feel for it. But hey, people could be faking us out. They could be saying no, and then they go in there and they can vote however they want to.
We know about the possible advantages of unionization. But for players that vote no, why would they be voting no? What would be the advantages of not forming a union?
Well, there are a bunch of reasons. One, their head coach obviously does not want them to, and they like Fitz. He's has their back. He's taking care of them. Those guys are treated very well. I think on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe they'd say they're treated like an 8.5, and they'd say, wait a second, what are the motives of this union? What are we going to get out of it? How about all this uncertainty? If they vote no, it pretty much goes away. If they vote yes, they have this whole maybe summer and fall and who knows how long of uncertainty. And look, they went 5-7 last year, and they are trying to win football games. The other thing is, when Kane Coulter and Ramogi Huma got them to sign their union cards, a lot of players felt like maybe they weren't deceptive, but they certainly left some stuff out. If you tell a player, hey, do you guys want to see at the table and better medical care? If so, sign these cards. They're going to sign the cards. But then all of a sudden it became, hey, you sign the cards, which means, you think Pat Fitzgerald is not treating you well. So a lot of guys said, wait a second, this is not what we signed up for.
He's Teddy Greenstein, Chicago Tribune, joining us here at the Dan Patrick Show. Teddy, you're down in D.C. for the Bulls-Wizards series. I was in Washington on last Wednesday when the Wizards ended their season and they knew Chicago was that first-round matchup. They were basically grinning ear to ear at that matchup. How did Chicago feel, and how do they feel about the way this team matches up with the Wizards?
Well, they feel a lot differently than they did about 72 hours ago. They went in with obviously really good respect for the backcourt. Beal and Wall, everybody knows those guys are dangerous, especially if they're shooting well. Nene was a wild card because he just hadn't been healthy, and now all of a sudden, this Washington team is confident, and the Bulls can't shoot in the fourth quarter. I mean, they went 7.5 minutes in Game 2 without scoring. So, this has been the Bulls' issue that they need. They need hustle points and perfect execution and a knockdown shots by guys like Kirk Heinrich and DJ Augustine to score in the fourth quarter, and that has not been happening.
Joakim Noah, the most popular athlete in Chicago?
Man, I'd say yes. Well, if they win this series. If they don't, it's going to be a struggle. But he, all the vibes from the year were incredible. I mean, here's a guy who everybody thought was just kind of a hustle player with the ugliest jump shot in the world, and he wins Defensive Player of the Year, and he might be first team All-NBA. So that is remarkable. So he's got a great persona. I think Brandon Marshall is very popular. Cutler goes up and down based on the Sunday, and man, baseball almost seems invisible these days with the Cubs struggling and the White Sox kind of being mediocre.
Good to talk to you, Teddy. Enjoy the game tonight.
Thanks, Chris. Take care, guys.
That's Teddy Greenstein, Chicago Tribune.